Welcome to a game between uh, blanks, or I think it's blanks here in blue, or otherwise called That Boy Rules Over You. So I think that's blanks. I'm gonna call blue blanks, and he's starting amphipods. That is my preferred choice on this map. Uh, and it's also an engineer commander. That is pretty good on this map. The engineer commander has extra build range and also more build power. So it's a good commander on this map because there's so much metal at the start position here. So 3.5 metal for each mechs. That's almost 3.5 metal, like two mexes otherwise. These other mexes are worth 2, so it's these starting mexes are almost worth 2 mexes each. So that's a good choice, and he's facing off against ceccoilfolle in a recon commander. So yeah, blanks just want general advice about his play. And let's see how it plays out. It's not a completely open map. It's a lot of mexes in the start of the game to take, and they're fairly easy to defend with all these cliffs funneling units. So if you put a defense turret up here, or yeah, it's just hard to push up on these hills, on top of these hills. Yeah. So it looks like, yeah, you need to go economic on this map in general, unless you're doing some form of rush. I would recommend going really economical, because these metal extractors give you a lot of income at the start. So yeah, it looks like yeah, it looks like yeah, he's go. It looks like blanks is going pretty economical, so that's nice. Meanwhile, we can see here that yeah, he's scouting and raiding with his duck. So, oh, and he's even getting a bandit kill. That's nice. But will he get anything else? There's a commander out that can jump on top of that duck. So yeah, it wasn't likely to get anything done. Also, you see that ceccoilfolle, is doing a trick here where he sets his bandit to guard the convict. That means it will be inside the shield, basically, of the convict. And that's pretty hard to deal with, like to raid with. You need like 2-3 raiders, and you probably need to like run in under the shield to actually get the bandit. Yeah, and blanks is doing pretty good here. He could put his factor on low priority or set his expanding commander on high priority, because he really wants to build his mexes up fast. And it also looked like he's being really defensive up here. Like, this is a bit much defense, too far back on the map. Like, yes, you're protecting these mexes with this Stardust and these Lotus turrets, but really, you don't need that much defense up here, I think. Also, when you're pushing out, yeah, you want to push out and take at least half the map. So yeah, making 1 or 2 Lotus turrets up here, that's fine. Then you feel a bit more safe about raiding. But Stardust and 2 Lotus turrets, I'd say that's a bit overkill. Like, the commander is here to defend now, so he could arguably build, like, you build the mexes first and then you build the defenses. And then you probably want to move out with your commander here, or you want to send some constructor to expand here. Like, if you look at the map and divide it in half, this is basically it. Like, yeah, you want to try to control at least this much territory. If you control half the map and deny some of the mexes for the enemy, yeah, you're winning basically. And here comes a first decent rating. There's 4 bandits against a shielded bandit, 4 ducks against a shielded bandit, and it takes quite a lot of shots to get through the shield. So yeah, almost duck going down there, even though the ducks are basically the same price as bandits. They're just 5 metal more expensive, so yeah. Even though he was 4-1, yeah, he almost lost ducks because of being inside the shield. But this is good rating. He's keeping his ducks alive, and they killed 3 mexes and they can't. Yeah, this is good. This is already worth it. Now the question is just, can he trade well with the bandits? He gets, yeah, not too well. He gets 1 bandit, yeah, 2 bandits. Decent. But that's a really good raid, I'd say. Now if you only had some units to send up here, that would also be good. This is completely open. There's nothing protecting this area. So yeah, you want to try to figure out, like, the start position is fixed on this map, so they always start on this map. And then these are the prime expansions that you want to go for first and take. And you also want to be raiding them first. So yeah, you want to try to launch multiple attacks, both harassing up here and then harassing down here as well. So yeah. So yeah, and now you're doing some reclaim. There is some reclaim on this map, but it's not that much, and it's really spread out. So it's not very important to reclaim on this map. Basically, you want to take your mexes first. Maybe you can reclaim on the way if you like spot some rocks on the way to these mexes. Yeah, reclaim it on the way. But otherwise, you want to build the mexes first, and then maybe connect winds to the, like, connect the grid to all the mexes. And maybe then, if you have some spare build power, you can start reclaiming. Like, you look up on this hill, it's 300 metal. It's something, but it's not that much. You want to build those mexes first. So yeah. So unless you're on the path, I wouldn't recommend going for reclaim. Or unless you have like some excessive build power. But generally, this little reclaim that is like on this map, yeah, it's generally not really worth going for. So yeah, you missed your opportunity here for raiding up here. Now it's getting kind of defensive up here. And it looks like your opponent is also pretty, they're also pretty defensive here. And yeah, they're also going for a lot of energy here. With these mexes, yeah, you want to connect them to the grid and have some extra energy to overdrive them. It's pretty effective on this map. But you also want to expand, like these mexes, yeah, they're more important than overdrive. But it's once you get established and got the defense line about this, that's where it's you want to try to defend. Yeah, you can build some grid your mexes, connect the whole grid with wind and tidal generators. Yeah, and your commander here is expanding without any problem, and the enemy hasn't even sent any raiding here, so yeah. That Stardust seems a bit excessive, but yeah. And here comes the first larger engagement. This is a, I'd say, as long as the boys can keep firing, you can do decent damage. But you're getting catched here between 2 sides here. So, and that means that your ducks aren't getting cut short, kinda, and you might lose this boy. So yeah, that was a pretty decent engagement by Cecil. Or Ceccoil. Although you might get the Racketeer here, that would be a nice pick off. And yeah, now it looks like Cecil has overexposed himself a bit. So yeah, you might be able to finish off these units. You have an archer here that's pretty good against raiders, like these bandits or raiders, light units. So these scallops will make pretty good short work of them. And the boys, they're pretty good. They're pretty good skirmishers. They don't have that much range, but once they hit, they will slow the enemy, and that makes it easier to kill them and makes the enemy deal less damage and everything. Now there's a bunch of rogues here, and rogues are decently tricky to deal with for ampbots. Like the boys are outrange with the rogues, so unless the enemy walks into the range of the boy like this, you're gonna have a hard time catching them with yeah, most of your units. And if you look at the composition that enemy is going for, they're going for a pretty balanced approach. They go for one disarm artillery, and they also go for some bandits, which can close in the distance and raid. and distract the enemy, and they also have some outlaws that are gonna slow down enemy raiders if they get close, and if they get close to other units they can slow them, and so you can finish them off more easily. And some thuds to take up damage and shield a bit. So it's a pretty balanced approach. It looks like you're also going for a pretty balanced approach. And it looks like you're just skirmishing a bit here. Meanwhile, yeah, you should be expanding a bit more up here. Like, this is free territory that no one has even contested yet. Building a stinger in the front here like this is pretty good. Then you're pretty safe in this area and you can mostly relax from this area. Breaking a stinger with a few Lotus as support, that's decent. Yeah. Oh, but it looks like you're gonna start accessing. Yeah, accessing is really bad because it means you're wasting metal. So yeah, you should have more caretakers here, really. Yeah. And this engagement is pretty bad for you. Yeah, this is something you would retreat from, definitely. So yeah, at this point, it seems you're losing a bit back of attrition. You did really well early game with the raiding, and then you caught up this army and killed it. But now that you're accessing, are you still accessing? You have stopped accessing. You accessed about 700 metal. Yeah, you have a bit smaller army here. And the enemy is also now reinforcing with Stinger, which is going to make it really hard to close the distance and kill. Like, Stingers for Ambots are decently tricky to deal with, especially if they have supporting units around them. So yeah, it looks like you have been pretty defensive up on this hill. Like a Stinger this far back, I don't know why you would build a Stinger this far back, especially when there's all this territory you could grab. Yeah. And it looks like you're making a bad attack choice here. You have a really small army and going into Stingers and laser turrets and everything. This is just a bad engagement. You're gonna lose your whole advantage. Like, yeah, you're basically throwing away your advantage with this attack. And pretty unnecessarily as well. Like, I guess you're trying out a lot of units, and that makes it a bit tricky. Like, you don't know how to break this position. And really, there's no easy way to break a position like this for Amphibots. They can't just make an artillery and shoot all these units from afar. Like, the longest range units they have is a bulkhead with 600 range, and also the Grizzly also with, what is it, also 600 range. So yeah, and the Stingers have about 620 range. So as Amphibots, you have nothing that can really outrange the Rogues and the Stingers. So breaking a position like this is pretty hard. Like, the Rogues have 530 range, and yeah, so yeah, you can barely outrange them with bulkheads and other units. Oh, and looks like Cecil is going in hard with his commander. He might even lose the commander. Like, morphing commander like this is pretty expensive. He paid like almost 3,000 for this commander, and it almost died against a few units here. So yeah, you have to be... it's not really gonna be worth it to morph this commander. Will he even lose? The jump is on cooldown. He might even lose the commander here. Oh, so close! The big shield just saves the commander. That was so close. But now you have a really small army, and yeah, you have been losing units piecemeal. Your attrition is really bad at this point. You have lost 5,000 of units. I mean, you have killed 5,000 of units, and the enemy has killed 8,600 of units. So this army is pretty big, actually. That's the biggest mistake. I'd say you lost your army piecemeal. And now you're also morphing your commander. And yeah, it's not gonna do much to break a big shield ball like this. Like this shield ball is worth about 4,300 metal. And your commander, yeah, you're worth it for what, like 2,500 metal? Yeah, it's not gonna do much against this army. Because a commander doesn't do much against an army in general. Yeah. And you're finally going for some raiding, but if you look at this position, this is also really light, easy to raid. You could have raided this basically almost all of the game. You could have been raiding this. 4 Lotus turrets, that's a bit harder to break, but 3 pickets, yeah, you send like 4 raiders and you break it. Um, Nimbus is decent against a shield ball. Problem is, yeah, it's gonna be draining the shields and hitting the shields a lot, so it's a decent choice against a shield ball. But generally, Nimbuses, they don't really lack. They don't really have like. They're outranged by most AA, so it's pretty easy to counter Nimbuses. But yeah, I guess you're trying out a lot of different stuff. Yeah. And this, as a new player, this is a common problem that you will face against a shield wall. Like, controlling a shield wall is fairly easy, but countering it is decently hard. But once you learn the right combination of units to counter shield ball, yeah, it's pretty even still. It's not like it's overpowered in anything. It's just a shield ball is just hard to break for a new player if you don't really know the tools to break it. Like for Ampbots, for example, you did good early game when you had about the same or a bit more value in the engagement. You could drain the shields and then kill it. But if the shield ball, like if you lose attrition value and the shield ball just keeps growing, you're gonna struggle to cut through those shields when the enemy has more army value than you. So that's the thing. Otherwise, like, yeah, ducks can run down a army. Archer are pretty decent. If scallop can get in range, they're pretty decent. Boys, you can even throw them with lobster. That's a bit of an advanced strategy. But there's an amph unit called the lobster that's good at. You can throw units with it. And that way you can throw your heavy boys and even scallops into the shield ball, and if it's drained, you can kill it fairly easily. But you have to be careful so you're not throwing units into the death, to a certain death, if the enemy has overwhelming numbers. Yeah. Yeah, so if you look at the total value here, you were ahead a bit in metal produced. But then if you look at metal use, since you had this metal stall, I mean you excessed metal, that meant that your opponent was going way ahead of you. I'd say your overdrive was decent. As you can see here, yeah, your overdrive did pretty well. It's certainly worth it on a pretty defensive map like this. Like, I didn't like your defensive positions here and here. You can just push it up further a bit, like put that defense here and here maybe, or maybe even up here. Like, if you control these areas as well, that's a lot of extra metal for you. And none of you ever contested this, so yeah. And this area was almost completely open for raiding. Just 5 raiders or 4 raiders would have been able to raid this. So yeah, you should try to probe with raiders more to not let the enemy get away with just making so little defense here. Breaking this, yeah, you probably need like 10-15 raiders to do it effectively. So that's a bit harder to break Lotus turrets. They have more DPS. Pickets are just long range units. So yeah, and then if you look at value killed here, you will see that you did pretty good in the early game, but then you started to lose your army against up the Stinger and the larger shield ball of the enemy army, and that's where you really fell behind. You need to like learn the counters to the shield ball, and in general, if you get a good angle, you can overrun it, but there's also outlaws with it and stuff like that, so I can't really give any specific tips of how you want to deal with the shield ball. Like, sometimes the shield ball might get real strong, and you would rather just avoid it and raid the expansion. And then when the enemy, like if you raid the expansion instead, the enemy will be far behind. And if they try to push in on you, you can have in this matchup, you can have stingers of your own to protect against the shield ball. Or you can have like boys are pretty good at slowing and getting through the shield. You can have what do you call them, scallops as well. I mean bulkheads. A grizzly, okay, I guess against racketeers will probably stun and disarm a grizzly. So yeah, grizzly isn't that good, but yeah, there are ways to deal with shield balls. Many ways. So yeah, and you can also go for Thunderbird, which is an airplane that disarms the whole shield ball. So if you have a Thunderbird and a stationary shield ball, you can just stun the whole shield ball with one or two Thunderbirds, and then you can run it down with like raiders like ducks or even archers. Archers are decently fast amph units. So yeah, good luck and have fun.